Well, as many of you probably do if you're on Facebook, look back at your memories from this day, years gone by. This, lo and behold, was the memory that appeared today on my Facebook page, and this was actually from back at the beginning of April 2012. Yeah, we had record breaking warm, remember, back in March, and this was what followed that record breaking warmth across the northern half of the British Isles. And it's interesting when you look at what the potential is for the upcoming work week. Thanks for clicking on to the Sunday evening edition of Logan's European Outlook. Before we get to that, a very, very chilly start to the day across the western portions of Europe, all the way into northern Spain, where we've seen temperatures close to minus 10 in the mountains. Here, we've seen some records fall, not just daily records, but actually monthly records fell in parts of southern France and northern Spain in the last couple of days, with the cold that has dug southwestwards here, helped somewhat by the milder air that is now pushing in to the northern half of the British Isles. And as I speak here at in Motherwell, you can hear the rain falling, and we are seeing much milder air moving in. So very, very different night from the night just gone across the entire British Isles. We're going to see temperatures possibly even up in the double figures in some spots as we press through the overnight period. But certainly a very, very cold start of the day for mid-April standards, or early April standards, should I say, across many portions of the country. If we look in and zoom into the British Isles, the coldest temperatures actually was confined to central portions of Ireland, as well as South Wales and southern England, where we've seen minus 7.5 at Sennybridge and minus 7.4 Celsius at the notoriously cold spot of Benson in Oxfordshire. But very, very different night coming up indeed. This is how the opening 3 days of April is looking across Europe. We're seeing the temperature as high as 34 degrees in Turkey during yesterday afternoon, where we've seen temperatures struggling in some spots to get much above freezing, and not necessarily confined to high elevations, that is, as well. So very, very impressive chill, that's for sure. And then as we go through the next 5 day period, you can see here off the GFS ensemble, we have got colder than normal across the northern portion of Scotland, warmer than normal across England, Wales, and Ireland here, because what we're going to see is over the next 24 hours, we're going to see the milder push south and kind of hold for for several days, and the model, of course, over the next 5 day period sees milder than normal across much of Ireland, England, and Wales. But this colder than normal to the north of the central belt is thanks to colder Arctic air coming back into play once again. We've got a couple of systems that run west to east, and we are going to see significant snow potentially over the high elevations of the North Highlands in the coming days here, and we'll look at that in just a second. Cold across much of France and Iberia, as you can see here. But the upcoming 6 to 10 day period off the GFS ensemble looks like this here. So we're pushing the cold south over the UK and Ireland here. So this is taking us out to the middle portion of April near enough, which is rather interesting. But look at the turnaround. Iberia, France, and across southern Europe, we're starting to see warmer temperatures coming into play here once we push towards the middle portion of the month. On the 11 to 15 day, that warmth seen by the model is trying to extend northwards here, and I think we're going to come up against quite a fight. We could be seeing temperatures pushing the first 30 degrees, for example, in parts of Spain, while we still have colder Arctic air coming into the northern half of the British Isles here. You can see here this kind of north to south split in terms of weather here. This is off the CFSV2, by the way, and you can see here the upcoming 7 day period here looks like this off the model. So we've got widespread cold extending all the way into Iberia across much of the UK and Ireland here. Much of Europe, in fact, is colder than normal. away from the southeastern portion of the continent here. And then in the week 2 time frame here, you can see that we've got still colder than normal across many areas. Notice here that we're intensifying the cold over the Baltic region here, northwestern Russia, and into the central portion of Europe here. Colder than normal across England and Wales, warmer than normal across Scotland here, and that might be to do with building high pressure as we go forward. But then the CFSV2 starting to buy into the idea of the GFS. It starts to warm things up, especially over the western portion of the continent as we go towards the mid and latter half of April here. So it's going to be interesting to see. And then the actual CFSV2 starts to turn things around again and tries to bring back the cold, if you notice here, as we end the month of April and begin the month of May here. So my idea remains that I think we could see at or below normal temperatures on average throughout the course of April. Some of the modelling, which I'm not necessarily going to dismiss, indicates the potential for some possible significant warmth towards the middle portion of the month. That is very plausible, given the models are now becoming a little bit more persistent at dragging in very warm Africa origin air up into Spain and Portugal, and there's no reason that to suggest that can't go northwards into the UK and into the Low Countries and whatnot. So we'll have to keep our eyes on that, I think, as we go forward here overall. Looking at the next several days here, this is off the GFS, by the way, and we'll go back to the current setup here. We've got of course the somewhat southward displaced area of high pressure. In comes the mild air with the wind and the rain, and then as you can see here, we'll start to see the isobars turn more northerly once again as we push into the early portion of next week. So this is Tuesday, and you can see here system number 1 moves through with colder air in place. So this is well up into the Highlands, by the way. This is not a central Scotland type scenario, but we could see significant snow really from, say, Aviemore northwards here, very dependent upon where that area of low pressure comes in, how far south cold air digs south, and so on and so forth here. But quite an interesting scenario. So the first system comes through, then the secondary system comes through, and then even you could argue there's a third system even tries to come through. And it's once a second or third feature moves through, it kind of opens the door to something colder. So therefore we have the snow threat moving southwards, really over higher ground, not necessarily to low levels here as we go through the middle portion of the work week here. Then that system moves through. You've got winds coming in from the north, windiest as you can see here off the GFS on the east coast. Keeping our eyes on this feature here coming through the northern portion of France, southern portion of England. It looks as if the centre of the low kind of moves through the north of France. But the UK in the colder, and of course the GFS and the CFSV2 is seeing that colder scenario towards the latter half of next week and into the weekend here. And it's really south of this boundary here. This is where we could see some very, very mild air coming up from the south. So of course, if you've got the cold coming south, you've got the warm moving north, watching out for potential severe weather, for example, through this boundary, this zone separating the two air masses towards the second half of next week. So it could be rather interesting as well as we go forward. Looking at the GFS snowfall potential here, so we start off with the snow threat across the northern half of Scotland here. During the course of the middle portion of the week here, mountains could capture some significant amounts of snow, and then of course as these features run through, it opens the door to snow threats further south here as we go forward. But the snow shrinks very quickly. You notice that here at this time of the year, it's really only the mountains that see snow for any kind of length of time as we go forward here. So certainly there's still a lot of action to keep our eyes on over the next week or 10 days anyway. So I do encourage you, of course, to stick around on my YouTube channel. I do appreciate it. Do check out markvoganweather.com. I've got the latest April outlook that is now available for you to read, and I'll be back again hopefully tomorrow with more. Have a great evening. Bye. Bye for now.